In 1972, Toho held a contest for school children, tasking them with designing a new monster that would appear in the next Godzilla film. A young boy won the top prize for his design of a creature he called Red Alone, which would evolve into the fan-favorite fighting robot Jet Jaguar in 1973's Godzilla vs. Megalon.
Let them fight.
You're a wizard, Harry.
You're gonna need a bigger boat. I'll be back.
Death has come to your little town, Jim.
Hey everyone, welcome back to Chills and Thrills. My name is Connor Dunham, and back with me again is Chris. Chris, how are we doing today?
Doing just fine, sir. How about yourself?
I am all right. And today we're talking about Godzilla vs. Megalon. And this was one of the ones I watched, just like Godzilla vs. Gigan, aplenty, just all the time when I was a younger kid. Not so much as an adult. Not a lot of dialogue in this film. Love the fight scenes, which we'll get into, but this is definitely one I liked more as a kid.
Yeah, it's definitely one that got a lot more replay value for me as a kid, specifically maybe the last 20 or so minutes. It has not, Godzilla vs. Gigan hasn't aged amazingly well into adulthood, but Godzilla vs. Megalon is very much one that it does not hit the same as it did when you're 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old.
Yeah, I can still have fun with it. I like it quite a bit more than others. I clearly like the monsters in it. But to give some background on it, Godzilla vs. Megalon is a 1973 Japanese kaiju film directed by Jun Fukuda, written by Fukuda and Shinichi Sekizawa, and produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka, with special effects by Teruyoshi Nakano. This film was distributed by Toho and produced under their effects subsidiary Toho Eizo. It is the 13th film in the Godzilla franchise and features the fictional monsters Godzilla, Megalon, and Gigan, along with the Mecha character Jet Jaguar. I don't know if he's Mecha, but that's what it has him listed as.
I mean, he's a robot. I think. Sometimes people think of Mecha as piloted robots, but I mean, he's a Mecha. I mean, Mechas can be robots that are self-sufficient. I mean, I think it's kind of a little nebulous. I think you get different definitions in different places.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you could say he's part metal or part mecha, so I guess we can't argue with him, but I guess I'm questioning it a little bit. The film stars Katsuhiko Sasaki, Hiroyuki Kawase, Yutaka Hayashi, and Robert Dunham, which is also my last name, and then alongside Shinji Takagi as Godzilla, Hideto Date as Megalon, Kenpachiro Satsuma as Gigan, and Sugatoshi Kamada as Jet Jaguar. Godzilla vs. Megalon was released theatrically in Japan on March 17, 1973, and it also received a theatrical release in the United States in the summer of 1976 by CinemaShares. And due to this release and subsequent home media, the film has become one of the most well-known kaiju films in the United States. And the film's popularity might also be a major contributor to Western perceptions of kaiju films as comedic or campy. And the film received revived recognition after an appearance on Mystery Science Theater 3000 in 1991. So there's just a little background on the film.
And it's, to go on a little bit of a tangent here, it's kind of a shame that company that was mentioned, CinemaShares, I think they released 3 or 4 Godzilla movies theatrically in the 70s, and the first was Megalon, and then they did Gigan and the 74 Mecha Godzilla. And it's such a shame because Megalon was the first one and the one they put the most work into promoting, and sort of got it the widest release and did all these little interesting things like vote for Godzilla badges and pins and things, and they did all these interesting things that got it heavily promoted. And so this became like a really the notoriety on this film was high, and from what I understand, the theatrical performance was just a kind of right place, right time kind of a thing. And then it had like a pretty publicized network premiere that was hosted by one of the Saturday Night Live alumni. And so it's like this movie, which is kind of like the worst of the 70s movies and kind of really the bottom of the barrel, was the one that kind of got all this buzz and attention and ticket sales and notoriety. And it's like, man, it's like they really took like talk about like putting the worst foot forward for the franchise at that time. It's like, could you imagine if like one of the really, really good 70s movies like Godzilla versus Mechagodzilla had gotten that kind of attention and notoriety and box office success and ratings and all that stuff? It's just a shame, because it's like, I do think it probably did really hurt the image of what the Godzilla franchise was for a long time, kind of crystallized it as this really kind of cheap, wonky, bottom of the barrel schlock, when some of the other 70s movies are a much better showing for the franchise.
Yeah, and I'm not here to rip on Godzilla vs. Megalon, but it probably is my least favorite of the 70s films, even though where it ends up in my ranking might surprise you, it might not surprise you. But I loved this film as a kid, and like I said, if I'm bored or if I'm just hanging out at home alone, it's still one of the ones I'll throw on. I'm not gonna sit here and say that I won't pick it out of the bunch just to randomly watch here and there.
Yeah, absolutely. It has a baseline entertainment value and a baseline love, just like all the Godzilla stuff. If as a kid I didn't have movies like this to kind of hook me in as a little kid, maybe you don't grow up to become a fan of all of the other Godzilla movies that have a bit more to offer. Stuff like that's easily overlooked. Little kid, every Godzilla movie is some little kid's first Godzilla movie, and I watched this a lot on VHS as a kid, and sure, there's an extent to where you say, look, like raw entertainment value, doesn't overcome every problem of a movie. You can't just take like a pretty overall bad movie and say, well, it's a little entertaining, so that makes it all okay. It's like, that only goes so far. This movie definitely has a bit of that so bad it's good thing going on, which is not the worst thing in the world, But, like I said, I don't have a ton of praise to heap upon the movie, but at the same time, I'm not trying to, tear it down too much.
No, and one thing I remember as a kid is I was really big into the 1976 King Kong. That was a movie I watched on repeat constantly, probably like once a week. And I remember the poster for Godzilla vs. Megalon, they're on top of the Twin Towers, and after seeing the 76 Kong, that I got super excited. Like, what? They're in New York City. They're on top of the trade centers. Like, what? I can't wait to see this. Like, what's going to happen? And then you get to the film, and as a kid, I was just like, that the trade centers weren't in this. They weren't in New York City. I wasn't like super disappointed because of course you still got good fight scenes and stuff, but seeing that poster after I seen the 76 Kong, I was super excited being so young.
Yeah, they completely aped that poster because this film came out in America after King Kong 76. In fact, I wouldn't be shocked if King Kong 76 being released was what led to some of these movies, these Godzilla 70s movies, to get theatrical releases almost as knockoffs or trend followers after a number of these Godzilla movies had been like straight to TV. You got to think King Kong comes out, it's kind of a hit, or it's at least widely known. And then so you got a couple of these cheap Godzilla movies you can acquire and throw into theaters and get some tickets, it's not a bad strategy.
Not at all. And before we go too deep into the film, I'll get right into the trailer, give everybody a plot synopsis, and then we'll come back, dig into some fun facts, some numbers, and some other stuff we liked and didn't like about the film.
ついに成功しましたね。このロボットにジェットジャガーと名を付けてやろう。
In the first part of 1971, the second of a series of underground nuclear tests is conducted near the Aleutians, sending shockwaves as far as Monster Island in the South Pacific, severely damaging the island paradise and sending Anguirus plummeting into the depths of the earth, with Godzilla narrowly escaping the fissure into which his friends tumble. For millions of years, Seatopia, an opulent undersea civilization that resides in vast cities reminiscent of those of ancient Greece and Rome, has existed in relative peace, ruled by Emperor Antonio. But nuclear tests in recent years have severely affected the cities via the earthquakes the tests produced. With the Seatopian capital badly affected by the most recent test, the Seatopians plan to unleash their civilization's beetle-style god, Megalon, to destroy the surface world out of vengeance. On the surface, an inventor named Goro Ibuki, his little brother Rokuro, and Goro's friend Hiroshi Jinkawa are off on an outing near a lake when Seatopia makes itself known to the earth by drying up the lake that the trio was relaxing nearby and using it as a base of operation. As they return home, they are ambushed by agents of Seatopia who are trying to steal Jet Jaguar, a humanoid robot under construction by the trio of inventors. However, the agents' first attempt is botched and they are forced to flee to safety. Sometime later, Jet Jaguar is completed, but the trio of inventors are knocked unconscious by the returning Seatopian agents. The agents' plan is to use Jet Jaguar to guide and direct Megalon to destroy whatever city Seatopia commands him to do. Goro and Rokuro are sent to be killed while Hiroshi is taken hostage. Megalon is finally released to the surface while Jet Jaguar is put under the control of the Seatopians and is used to guide Megalon to attack Tokyo, with the JSDF failing to defeat the monster. Eventually, the trio of heroes manage to escape their situation with the Seatopians and reunite to devise a plan to send Jet Jaguar to get Godzilla's help using Jet Jaguar's secondary control system. After uniting with the JSDF, Goro manages to regain control of Jet Jaguar and sends the robot to Monster Island to bring Godzilla to fight Megalon. Without a guide to control his actions, Megalon flails around relentlessly and aimlessly, fighting with the defense force and destroying the outskirts of Tokyo. The Seatopians learn of Jet Jaguar's turn and thus send out a distress call to their allies, the Space Hunter Nebula M aliens, to send the alien monster Gigan to assist their ally. As Godzilla journeys to fight Megalon, Jet Jaguar starts acting on its own and ignoring commands, to the surprise of its inventors, and grows to gigantic proportions to face Megalon itself until Godzilla arrives. The battle is roughly at a standstill until Gigan arrives, and both Megalon and Gigan double team against Jet Jaguar. Godzilla finally arrives to assist Jet Jaguar and the odds become even. After a long and brutal fight, Gigan and Megalon both retreat, and Godzilla and Jet Jaguar shake hands on a job well done. Jet Jaguar bids Godzilla farewell, and Godzilla returns to his home on Monster Island. Jet Jaguar returns back to its human size and returns home with Goro and Rakuro. All right, Chris, what do you say we poke your brain with some fun facts and see if you know any of these?
All right, let's go for it.
Contrary to popular belief, there is no evidence Godzilla vs. Megalon was originally planned as a Jet Jaguar solo film, and no Japanese sources have surfaced which claim otherwise. Rather, the creation of Jet Jaguar was a result of a contest Toho had for children in mid to late 1972. So, I had heard that this film was supposed to be a Jet Jaguar plan, but I didn't realize that it was such a popular, myth, I guess you could say.
Yeah, I had never really heard that it was necessarily... I mean, I can understand watching the movie how it kind of feels like it could have been that. Just like if you watch Ever Horror of the Deep and then someone explains it to you, you can kind of see, oh yeah, I could see how it was a King Kong script and they kind of just search and replaced Godzilla into the script, It's like you could tell me after watching this movie, hey, do you know that was a Jet Jaguar movie, and then they kind of just threw Godzilla in there for notoriety. You can believe it, but I mean, like I said, I didn't know that it was. I wouldn't have guessed that it was some huge misconception on the level of the two endings for King Kong versus Godzilla or anything like that.
No, not at all. I guess that one was I kind of just threw that little fun fact in there because I had no idea. I didn't know if you would have any thought of that either. So that was just okay, that's news to me.
Yeah, I mean, I knew about the contest origin, and the sad thing is from what I understand, the the contest winner, the design from the kid's drawing or whatever to what actually ended up being the final design for Jet Jaguar. Apparently outside of the name, I don't think the design actually resembled the kid's art very much. I think people said that when they revealed it that you could see the disappointed look on the kid's face. They kind of had the contest, and I guess it was a robot, but outside of that, they changed a lot of things from the kid's sort of piece of art into Jet Jaguar or Jet Jaguar, I don't know. And I don't know, it's just a weird little anecdote. And I mean, it's clearly a bit of an Ultraman knockoff. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue against that, but it's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. According to Teruyoshi Nakano, Godzilla vs. Megalon was a replacement project for another film that was canceled at the last minute, and the evidence suggests this film was Godzilla vs. the Red Moon, slated for 1973.
Huh. That's interesting.
Yeah, I would. I have no idea what that would have been about.
Yeah, I've done some dives into some of the sort of great many unmade Godzilla movies before, and I remember reading up a little bit of what the Godzilla vs. Red Moon was about. I don't know if it's this one, but I know there was one Godzilla movie kind of around this time that was being planned where it was going to be a thing where there were going to be two monsters, and the military tried to get them to meet up to fight and kill each other, and then when they meet up, they mate, and then they have an offspring, and then Godzilla ends up fighting all three members of the family of monsters. I don't know if that was this Red Moon concept. I think it maybe was, but I remember that was the gist of one of those Godzilla movies that was going to be made around this time, and it just didn't happen.
This film, Godzilla vs. Megalon, had three early treatments, each written by Shinichi Sekizawa. One was titled Godzilla vs. the Megalon Brothers, The Undersea Kingdom's Annihilation Strategy, which was completed in September 1972. The second was titled Insect Monster Megalon vs. Godzilla, Undersea Kingdom's Annihilation Strategy, and that was turned in on September 5th, 1972, and then the third draft was submitted on September 7th, 1972, and the production time totaled nearly 6 months from planning to finish.
Whew. Interesting. Did you wait a minute? Did you just mention the how many days they spent filming it?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. What was the number again? Was it 17 or something like that?
No, it just said it was nearly 6 months from planning to finish.
Okay, here, let me see if I can find, because I know there's some absurd stat about the insanely low amount of days that they actually spent actually shooting this thing, and it's remarkable. It's one of the things where it's like, look, it doesn't excuse the movie at all, but it's one of the things where it does kind of put it into perspective. Let me find this.
I got it right here. A
Okay.
couple fun facts down. It says Teruyoshi Nakano recalls how the film was rushed and that it took 3 weeks to shoot, stating it went into production without enough preparation.
Gosh, 3 weeks. You got to think about that. 21 days to film this movie. It's like you give me 21 months and I'm probably not able to make something like this.
No, and that's why I don't rip them, because, like you said, in 21 months, I probably wouldn't be able to come up with something better.
Yeah. So, yeah, that's interesting. But yeah, that was always one that was like shocking. It's like, wow, 3 weeks, to go film a wide release giant monster movie that, I mean, sure, they might not have known it at the time, but this is one of the longest running, arguably the longest running, continuously running film franchises of all time. Like this is rarefied air. This is elite status, and you've got a movie in the 70s that got filmed in 3 weeks. That's just the nature of the game in the 70s. The production budgets were down, the production schedules were shorter, all the attention was on TV. The studios were all struggling. The movie industry was struggling in Japan. Like it was a bad circumstances to be making these movies, and they still pulled off something that's pretty dang entertaining.
Well, yeah, and then this goes along with it. Also, according to Teruyoshi Nakano, the Godzilla suit used in this film, nicknamed Meguro Goji, was made in a week, making it the fastest Godzilla suit ever made to date.
That's interesting, and I don't really love this look, but the face design for this Godzilla has always been kind of interesting because they give him kind of this like friendly smirk that's like permanently part of like the way his mouth is shaped. And there was always something like really kind of like entertaining about that to me, that he's kind of like this is like full blown like your pal Godzilla, like this is like the friendly fun giant that's here to help out. I always found that entertaining.
For sure. I like this look. But I guess we'll get into that during monster design. The Megalon suit was one of the heaviest suits produced since the '54 Godzilla suit, which made it more difficult to raise the Megalon suit via wires in certain scenes, up to the point where Nakano almost decided to scrap the scenes altogether.
Huh, that's interesting. Yeah, and you can kind of tell in some of those shots of Megalon hopping around, like it's a little bit of a struggle fest there. It looks kind of awkward and weird, and they're trying to give him like a grasshopper hop, and it just kind of looks it looks like there's some physical straining going on in those shots.
Since the film was shot in the winter, Katsuhiko Sasaki stated director Jun Fukuda gave him and Yutaka Hayashi a shot of whiskey while filming to warm them up.
That's interesting.
That's just, that's not something you hear about over there. That's something you'd hear about in the United States, us doing. Oh, it's cold. Let me take a shot.
Yeah, you could make a joke here about were they drinking to stay warm, or were they drinking because they were, embarrassed at the level of the script they were filming, but, I won't say that.
Godzilla vs. Megalon is the first film to receive an American primetime network television premiere, where it was broadcasted nationwide at 9 p.m. on NBC on March 15th, 1977. And then my last one is Godzilla vs. Megalon is the only Godzilla film in which there are no named female characters and no female characters with a speaking role. Now there's the female dancers, but none that have a name or a speaking role. So this is the only film that has that.
Yeah, that's interesting. And there's maybe that's why it's one of the worst Godzilla movies. I don't know. There's another and it's funny there in the scene where they're in the sort of shipping container on the back of the truck getting driven around. In the cab of the truck, with the three guys are in there talking. They've got like Playboy pinups on the wall of the cab of the truck behind them, and it's like this weird little thing. It's like, oh, this is like such like a childish kid movie, but like they've got these like random bits of like Playboy pinup nudes in the back of one of the shots. It always caught me off guard.
I did catch that, and I had to do a double take, and I'm like, is she wearing anything or what? Like,
and it is. I don't know the name of the model, but like it is. Those are like like they are a Playboy like centerfold spread or something like that. I believe the VHS copies of the movie had those shots edited out. I believe. I'm not positive. I know certain versions, like broadcast versions and stuff. But yeah, it's really odd that like you just get like random nudity in the cheapo Depot Godzilla 70s movie.
yeah, because a film that's coming up is supposedly the only nudity in the Godzilla franchise. Until I caught that today, I'm like, wait a minute, it's only a little glimpse, but that counts.
Yeah. Technically, we get it in two different Godzilla movies.
Okay, not including this one then, or is that including?
So this one, and then there's a little bit in Terror of Mechagodzilla.
Okay. I wasn't sure if you were counting this one. I was like, did I miss something else?
Yeah, no, I was counting this one. I've heard, and I've never seen it in the movie, but someone said that that there's some shots in the original Godzilla movie where some of the native island girls are seen topless, but like it's got to be in the background of some shot because I've seen that movie so many times, and I guess I'm just never looking at the native ladies in the background of those Odo Island shots. I don't know, but
Yep, I can say I've never caught it either. So clearly, we're paying attention to better parts of the film.
Yeah, we're classy gentlemen here.
I wouldn't go that far. All right. Do you want to get into favorite character and score and whatnot, and then after that, I'll give you some quick numbers, and we can talk about monster design and whatnot.
Yeah, we can do so. Yeah, we can go into. We can start with scenes this time. Maybe we can do kind of like favorite, not so favorite, or pros and cons kind of a thing.
I'll give you my favorite scene, and
Okay.
of course, in this one, it's going to be a fight scene. But a specific part is when Godzilla hits land and he's walking towards Gigan and Megalon, just double teaming Jet Jaguar, just kicking the hell out of him. And he walks up and he just almost takes approach for a second, like looks at what he's getting into. And then he just starts crunching him, just throwing haymakers, and Megalon falls down. And then he punches Gigan, he falls down, and he's just going back and forth as each, like, oh, you're up? All right, back down you go. And he's just hammering him back and forth until finally they've had enough for the first couple minutes of the fight.
Yeah, no, it's an excellent entrance. It's like Godzilla's like here to, he's taking names and kicking butt, and he does this, like, he's got this great sort of like pro wrestling kind of entrance, like walk to the ring. He's like doing this weird thing with his arms as he's approaching, and then he's knocking him back and forth, and then he does this sort of interesting, like when he's circling around to kind of angle himself back around to where Jet Jaguar is. He's like doing these weird like karate like swivels and moves with his arms. It's like always very entertaining to me. Like this is one of the more like personified Godzilla movies or Godzilla portrayals. Like Godzilla is very like handled in a sort of anthropomorphized human kind of a way, and it's just it does lead to some it's not very logical and cool or interesting, but it is very entertaining fight scenes because of that.
Yeah, I love all the fight scenes, but that is my go-to.
Yeah, for me, the scenes that I like the most, because this movie, the special effects are really kind of not anything to write home about, and there's a ton of stock footage of destruction and the military fights and stuff. I mean, they do a lot of close-ups of Megalon, and then they do a lot of destruction footage from a lot of other movies and just cut it in. The entire reason that Megalon's little horn energy bolt is a yellow like lightning blast is basically so that they can intercut it with footage of Ghidorah's lightning blast destroying things from other movies. Like, it was designed to match Ghidorah's blast so that they could use the stock footage. So there's not a lot of great things about the special effects, but there are two really good kind of miniature moments that I love. And one of them is when the lake is being drained at the beginning of the movie, and then another one is when the dam is being destroyed by Megalon later in the movie. Like, those are just some vintage, like, classic looking, like, really solid miniatures effects work for a movie that does not have very many, good effects moments to write home about. So I just wanted to give those two moments a shout out.
Absolutely. One of the special effects scenes I always kind of make fun of is when they're doing the car chase and the guy throws the lighter out of the car and you see the big fire explosion, and you can just completely tell that the fire, it looks like it was a very small fire, but it was enlarged and just stuck in the screen.
Yeah. There's definitely some dodgy moments in this one.
So I'll give you my favorite quote, and that'll go into also my favorite character.
Okay.
So I did end up finding one, just a small one. It was Hiroshi Jinkawa who said it, and he's also my favorite character. It was more nuclear testing, and they'll blow the Earth to bits. And like I said, there's not a lot of dialogue in this film to pick from. This might be the least amount of dialogue we get in a Godzilla film, or it's got to be close. But I liked him as a character. He was he almost seemed like the hard ass out of the guys. He's in the American dub version, he calls the guy one of the kidnappers, I guess you could say, Seatopians. He calls him dumb. And he gets into a fight with him. Like, he's never backed down. He gets into the car chases, and he's trying to protect his friend and his little brother, or his friend's little brother. And I just I like him as a character. I could see myself being that person.
Yeah. I double that. He's the more interesting character because he's kind of like the badass. And the dub version of that line is, he says, "What the hell are they trying to do? Wipe us all out or something?" It's he's interesting. There's a kind of a running joke in this movie that in the film, the kid, the scientist is the kid's older brother, and then the other guy is the older brother's friend. And people always joke in this movie about it's a kid and his two dads, and people make jokes that, like, one dad is action dad and one dad is science dad. So, like, science dad made Jet Jaguar, and then action dad, like, does the car chases and beats up the bad guys. And it's just like this really great, like, running joke. And so I can't watch this movie without thinking of it as being like the kid and two dads movie,
Yeah, I like them as a trio. I mean, however you want to look at them, friend, brother, and little brother, or dad, action dad, and kid, I like these three as a trio. They're fun, along with Jet Jaguar. And I don't think they're in another Godzilla film, or if it is, it's down the road and they're completely different.
Yeah, I think this kid actually is the same kid as Godzilla versus Hedorah. If you didn't know that, it's actually the same child actor as the one from Godzilla versus Hedorah.
Okay, he looked familiar, and I thought he might have been, but I didn't check up on that, because they clearly in these films they do recycle a lot of characters.
Yeah, and I mean, not to be, generalizing here, but like a Japanese kid in one Godzilla movie, and then a few years later, a Japanese kid in another Godzilla movie, like, you don't want to assume that they are the same kid or just be like, oh, these are two different kids. They just look alike, but it's like they are in fact the same kid. I think and then I believe the science dad, the scientist, he actually does. He's the lead in Terror of Mecha-Godzilla, and then he's in a couple of the Heisei movies, but I'll save that for the Heisei movies. But he does get a few more appearances in the franchise. But yeah, he's kind of the main dude in Terror of Mecha-Godzilla.
Okay, now that you say that, that sounds super familiar.
He's kind of got that face. Someone once said that he has kind of like a fat looking face, and I mean, I don't know if I would like agree with that, but like I get what they mean by it. Like his face is kind of wide, and so like so it does make him kind of recognizable in that way.
Yeah, and I love that they bring the Showa era actors, you can't really say characters, but the actors who play them into like Heisei films, or like in one of the Millennium films, how they bring back one of the actors from the original Mothra. Like, I like seeing callbacks and such like that.
Oh yeah. Bringing back characters, bringing back actors and actresses, that stuff's always fun. Gives a sense of like, even when films aren't sharing continuity, it gives them a sense of like maintaining the legacy. I'm a big fan of that as well.
All right, so I'll go into my favorite soundtrack or score from the film, which this might be yours as well. I know you told me what yours might be, but this one is mine. It was titled Victory Shake, and this is what that sounded like. So I guess kind of like yours in a way. I mean, it's got a similar ring to it.
Yeah, that I believe that's the same kind of like background music for the Jet Jaguar song that's at the end of the movie. So I mean, it's kind of the same theme, just one of them has some dialogue or lyrics rather to it. But yeah, the score for this one is kind of nothing to write home about. And I mean, I wouldn't be shocked if a decent amount of it was some stock music or reused cues or things like that. But that's kind of the only standout piece, And the Jet Jaguar song's a little goofy, but I mean, it's got nostalgia value though.
Yeah, I like it. Punch, punch, punch.
Yeah, exactly. You can't hate on the enthusiasm they have.
No, because the last couple have had like a goofy song at the end, and out of the three, I'd probably say this one is my favorite.
I like the Gigan one. I like the one for Gigan, but each to their own.
I just think I like the punch, punch, punch. It gets me going.
Yeah. That's great.
All right, so yours was the Jet Jaguar song, correct?
Yeah, I went with the song, full blown lyrics.
が作ったロボットだけどジェットジャガージェットジャガーやったでジャガー行け行け平和を守るためみんなも驚く勇気を見せるゴジラとジャガーでパンチパンチパンチ
So they know I'll give them some punch, punch, punch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, drop it in right when you say it.
All right, I'll give you some numbers here quick, and then we can get into some monster design, because I do want to give a little shout out to the monsters.
Sounds good.
In Japan, Godzilla vs. Megalon sold approximately 980,000 tickets. It was the first Godzilla film to sell less than 1 million admissions, and it earned 220 million yen in Japan. The film was a success, though, in American theaters, earning just under $400,000 in its first 3 days in Texas and Louisiana alone, and the film grossed about $20 million worldwide on a budget of $1.2 million.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. As you know, not surprising to see that the ticket sales were declining in Japan. Again, not to hate on the movie, but it's not Godzilla's finest hour in many regards. It's got a fun fight at the end. Jet Jaguar has kind of become a memed character. A lot of this movie it has a lot of meme-worthy moments and memeable moments, and so it's got a fun legacy for that. It gets to be kind of the designated so bad it's good Godzilla movie. That's not the worst thing in the world, but the quality and like the integrity of the franchise, like it's certainly lacking in those regards. This one's just kind of going full goofy, full like give 0 Fs, and so it's not shocking that the numbers are declining here.
No, and it's just like over here with like the Final Destination movies or the Halloween or the Friday the 13th or something such as that. If you release one every year, people are going to get burned out and they're just going to be like, okay, well, I seen the last 3 in theaters. I'm just going to wait for this one to be released on home video.
Yeah, and if they continue to be, cheaper and less inventive and all of those things, if there's a perception of a decline in production value and decline in quality, we see it here in modern times. People talk about how movies with a lot of CGI nowadays, that the CGI looks worse than movies that came out 10 years ago, and people are getting mad about that. Studios are spending $250-300 million on these movies, and you have these cartoony visual effects that look worse than stuff that we got a decade ago, with half the budget. And audiences are more, they've got higher standards than they give credit for a lot. So you start to give, and the special effects directors of these movies talked about how they would get fan mail talking about how they would notice that there was stock footage being reused, that it felt like old material, that it wasn't fresh, and so audiences know those things even in the days before home video was really a thing. And so that you can't keep dropping the quality, dropping the production value, dropping the resources and expect to reap the same rewards.
Yep, it might be good while it lasts, but eventually you're going to run out of luck. Especially with releasing something every year or once every 2 years. Like I said, people are just going to get burned out. And with all the digital apps on your TV now that, release films to that app like Vudu or anything like that, where they can just purchase it for $20 at home a month after it's been in theaters, well, why not?
Yeah, exactly. And this is the movie that, people talk about Jet Jaguar being basically a bit of an Ultraman riff, and Ultraman was really popular on time and people were getting Ultraman for free on TV at the time. And so this movie kind of gets like, it's a little bit of like an overblown Ultraman episode, but in a theater with Godzilla involved. And so, if there's, Ultraman movies were kind of known, like they would have their monster mash, very human-like monsters. They're not slowing the footage down to capture the weight. It's just guys in suits kind of doing kung fu fights. And it was always in these kind of like barren, desert island type settings of just like terrain. There was never a lot of like cityscapes and city destruction and things of that nature in an Ultraman episode. So it's like if you're just giving people a bit of an overly long, overly goofy, overly boring Ultraman episode with a big monster tag team at the end, that's not really going to get a lot of people to go to the theater. And there's a reason that the next movie in the series has a much higher level of sort of production value and quality to it. It's because, I think it was recognized that for the 20th anniversary of the original movie, they needed to do something a little bit more higher tier and higher quality.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%. This film, though, Godzilla vs. Megalon, has a 4.8 out of 10 rating on IMDb. It has a 38% on Rotten Tomatoes. 89% of Google users liked this film. Godzilla's on screen for 10 minutes and 24 seconds, or 13% of the film, and he is teased at 59 seconds, or roughly 1% into the film, and doesn't make a full appearance until Jet Jaguar comes to get him at 48 minutes and 23 seconds, or 60% of the way through this film. So those are all my numbers for you.
Yeah, definitely. It definitely sort of fits the mold of a 80-minute Godzilla movie where they're really cramming the highest percentage of all of the monster action right there into that kind of last 20 minutes, and this sort of this is following that mold in the same way that like Ibra Horror of the Deep did.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, like you said, though, there's some great parts in this film. The dam scene is where the Megalon's destroying that is also one of my favorites as well. So I 100% agree with you on that one. The fight scenes, I don't mind the characters.
Yeah. It has, like I said, it has its moments to shine. The stock footage can get egregious. Gigan was basically only included in the movie because there was a bunch of Gigan stock footage they could use of him fighting Godzilla from the previous movie. The movie's almost designed from the top down. All Monsters Attack gets a lot of flack for the stock footage it used, but movies like this sometimes are almost as egregious in some ways.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the most famous part of this film, which is the sliding tail drop kick.
Yep, exactly. And it's like for just as much as I'll admit it's ridiculous and goofy and totally dumb and makes you roll your eyes, it's also fun. And it's also the only time you ever get to see Godzilla do anything like that. Just like Godzilla flying in Hedorah. It's like, it might be sort of infamous, but, it's sort of iconic in a certain way, and it's a piece of pop culture. So, it's sure dumb, stupid, eye rolls, goofy, silly, but also kind of cool.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that part. I loved it as a kid. I like that he takes Megalon by the tail, lifts him up, almost like a King Ghidorah thing that he did in Gigan, and he's slamming him down on the ground and just like beating him to a pulp. There's a lot of good monster scenes in this film because I believe Godzilla shows up to rescue Jet Jaguar in a way, or kind of get the tag team battle going again at just right around an hour. So the last 18 of the last 20 minutes of this movie is a big fight scene between the four.
Yeah, and it's a big and like a full blown traditional kind of tag team match, just like how Gigan was, and that stuff, like, that's candy to a kid, Then there's plenty of, like, while we're on the fight scenes, there's plenty of great kind of like monster character moments in there, like when Godzilla's sort of like circling around them to get over to Jet Jaguar. You have, Megalon doing this sort of taunting thing where he's clapping his pincers or his hands together. Megalon shoots these like fire grenades out of his mouth, and there's a scene where Jet Jaguar grabs it and throws it so it doesn't explode on Godzilla's head. Gigan gets a hold of Jet Jaguar at one scene and like has him around the neck and is like threatening to kill him, and Godzilla has to go save him. There are a lot of great kind of like character moments, if you will, for the monsters within this fight. There's a lot of dynamics to the fight.
Yeah, one thing you don't realize in these older films is how much Godzilla doesn't use his atomic breath.
Yeah, he really kind of saves it up for certain moments, kind of like he's got to store up his reserves, like it's like a replenishing, bar on a video game or something. He can't just spam it endlessly. It's something that takes energy and effort from him to do, so he can't just do it nonstop in the same way you can't just throw your strongest punch over and over again.
Yeah, another one of the parts I liked was when they have Godzilla and Jet Jaguar surrounded by the fire from Megalon's little mouth grenades, and Godzilla just hops on Jet Jaguar's back and they fly out, and Megalon and Gigan just look at him like, are you serious? What the hell?
Yeah, sort of team up, doubling up moments like that are just really entertaining. And And again, it sort of plays into this notion. It's like, well, Jet Jaguar must have missed Godzilla versus Hedorah because Godzilla's not flying anymore. It's just, it just leans into sort of a little bit more of the goofier side of the movies.
Well, yeah, since we're talking about all the monsters and monster fighting, let's go into monster design, and we'll start off with Gigan, since he pretty much looks the same as the last film.
Yeah, he's still rocking the space chicken look. It's still a cool design, a cool look, a cool concept. But yeah, it's probably the exact same suit reused. But I mean, he still looks cool.
Yeah, I like him. Looks a little cheaper in this one, but of course, again, as we said, budgets and films not making as much money. I'm sure they couldn't do too many improvements on it after it was beat up in the last film. But I've always liked his design. Like I said, hopefully we'll get another upgraded version of him in a film before the end of my time. But I did like Jet Jaguar. I had never seen Ultraman, and I still have not seen Ultraman. I thought about buying the collection just to have watched them. I know a lot of Godzilla fans like them and have seen them, but I definitely like Jet Jaguar in this film. He's just how he's almost human-like. I like that he can fly. I like that when he grows up or makes himself grow larger, the first thing he wants to do with Megalon is get into a boxing match, and he just throws a haymaker and just puts him on his ass.
Yeah, I mean, because he's human-sized for a stretch of the movie and is kind of personified, I really was tempted to pick Jet Jaguar as my favorite character in the movie, but it'd kind of be cheating because we don't really pick the monsters as favorite characters, because otherwise, how many times do you just pick Godzilla? But Jet Jaguar kind of does have his own character, and I like that he's kind of got this like martial arts angle. I was never really grew up on Ultraman either. My dad grew up on Ultraman, so I know Ultraman tangentially, and like enough to know that like Jet Jaguar is kind of like a riff, But Ultraman's one of those things where it's like I could never get into it because it's like the one piece of the kaiju universe, because there's like a 1,000 episodes of Ultraman, and it's been going on for decades and decades as a TV series. It's like I'd never have enough time to sit down and watch all that, like even if I wanted to. So it's like I've seen bits and pieces here and there, but it's like I could never become like a dedicated Ultraman fan.
No, I'm interested, but again, being an adult, having kids and stuff like that, with work, it is hard to even to sit down and watch your favorite TV show nowadays. It's like, all right, well, give me an hour and I'll get back to daddy duty.
Exactly. Every year more stuff comes out, so every year you're either saying, okay, I'm going to add more and more stuff to the collection and have less and less time to rewatch it all, or you kind of have to make some decisions of like, well, this stuff's getting kicked out of the collection. I'm never going to go back to this stuff because I got to make room for the new stuff. And it's like, yeah, I don't have the time to dive into Ultraman. But Jet Jaguar as an Ultraman knockoff is cool. I like his color scheme. I like his kung fu abilities. I like that he just sort of wills himself into growing bigger. Stuff like that's fun. So I like Jet Jaguar.
Yep, I'm in 100% agreement with you. Godzilla in this film, on the other hand, I also like his design. It's nothing great, kind of just a basic Godzilla design. I've always liked the spines on his back, and I can't wait till we have 3 rows instead of like one with 2 baby rows on the sides. But I like the face in this one. I like how he's, like I said, he's like a brawler in this one too, just ready to fight, punching everybody.
Yeah, he's
hitting every. Yeah, he took some boxing lessons in between Gigan and this, because he's going at him hardcore, and he's like I guess he's just one of the basic designs. This one's a middle tier Godzilla suit design for me.
Yeah, like I said, he's kind of got this like heroic kind of like friendly smirk about him. He's sort of he's the your pal Godzilla kind of a look. And that's fine. It's not not an intimidating Godzilla design. It's not a particularly cool Godzilla design, but for the purposes of like, hey, let's do like a fun Ultraman style hero Godzilla team up movie. You know, it's fun in that regard.
Absolutely. And then last but not least, we have Megalon, who I love his design. I know people say he's supposed to be like a giant beetle, but I absolutely love the design of his wings. I love the little like cross-shaped horn he has on his head. I love his drillers for hands that he can put them together and drill through the ground. And I used to use him all the time in like the Godzilla Save the Earth games and drill underneath the ground and come up and grab the other monster I'm fighting and throw him. And I like Megalon a lot. I wish he would have made a second appearance in a film that would have had more money to give his suit an upgrade to see what he could have become. But he's one of the monsters I truly like in this franchise.
Yeah, he's sort of it's interesting to see how Jet Jaguar has kind of gained like a fandom and a cult following over the years, but like Megalon kind of didn't get as much love over time, and it's like I always dug Megalon just because I feel like it's a great like companion creature to Gigan. You know, they both have these sort of claws or pincers on their hands, or sort of like insectoid looking. You know, like I've always kind of dug Megalon, and you know, when you're a kid, you're just like, oh wow, we never saw Megalon again, and then you become an adult and you realize like, oh, everyone kind of like craps on that movie and craps on that monster, and you know, we never get it again. And like, there are even rumors that they're going to do like a 50th anniversary short for Godzilla versus Megalon, but all the attention is on making it star Jet Jaguar, and there's not a lot of talk about even bringing Megalon back for that, which would be unfortunate. You know, it's like give the guy some love, give the creature a little bit of a shout out, a little bit of a return. But I think it's a fun kind of grasshopper beetle kind of design. It's a cool monster. You know, it's a fun little design.
Yeah, I mean, you can't knock him for trying something different, trying to be a little creative.
Yeah, and while we're on this note, like I like that he shoots like fireball grenades out of his mouth. I love that there's a scene in the movie where Godzilla sort of makes him eat it back, and then the smoke just comes billowing out of his mouth. Jet Jaguar has a great moment where he's got Gigan, and he just like snaps Gigan's arm while he's got him held behind him. Like there's just a lot of like good like fun like physical violence with the monsters that they do in this movie that does make it entertaining. You know, the movie overall isn't anything to write home about, but like it's got a doozy of a last 20 minutes, that's for sure. A doozy of a last half hour.
Well, with that being said, because I love that last 20 minutes as well, where would you put this on your tier ranking for the Showa era?
Oh, and it stings to say this. It stings to say this because I like it. I like what I like about it, but I am in that camp of like, you know, no amount of like memes and fun little monster moments is enough to kind of like usurp the quality of some of these other movies. So I actually have it as of the first 13. I've got it just above All Monsters Attack at the bottom.
Wow.
Yeah,
that is something I did not have.
Yeah,
I did.
Yeah, it's just a hard, especially recently. It's just a hard watch. Like you got to get through a lot of sludge to get to some of those fun monster battles and monster moments. Like I got it pretty low. Like debatably interchangeable with Ebera, but like it's definitely in bottom 5 for sure for me for the Showa series. All
right. So what 3 are you eliminating this week then out of the 13?
Yeah, as of this week, the 3 I would be eliminating would be All Monsters Attack, Megalon, and Ebera Horror of the Deep. Those would be the 3 I'd be axing if I could only keep 10 of the 13.
Okay, so this might shock you. I have, and this might just be nostalgia from being a kid, I have Godzilla vs. Megalon above Godzilla vs. Hedorah, but just under Godzilla vs. Megalon Godzilla vs. Gigan in my number 6 spot.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
So that's pretty high, but I think a lot of it is nostalgia from being a kid and liking this film so much then.
And look, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm definitely going with kind of like, how it feels to go back through these movies and rewatch them and kind of see where the series starts off at and kind of what it becomes. I'm not the sort of corridor of films from 69 to 73. Those movies are fun and memeable, but they're definitely like my, they're not my favorite type of Godzilla movie. They have their qualities, but as a baseline, I just don't really love that style of Godzilla movie very much. Glad these movies exist, but I can't pick those as my favorites.
And I completely understand that. And this might shock you as well that the 3 I'm gonna get rid of so far are All Monsters Attack, Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster, and Ebra Horror of the Deep. So yet again, Godzilla Raids Again is safe with 2 movies left to go.
Yep. And like I said, we agree on 2 of those 3, and it's a big getting rid of Ghidorah. Like that's sacrilege as far as I'm concerned, because I still got that in my number 5 spot, but each to their own.
Yeah, like I said, once we get to all 36, or by the time we're finished, it'll be 38. That'll be fun.
It'll be pure chaos. Pure chaos.
That's going to be a 3-hour episode of us going at each other's necks.
Yeah, we better not. We can't do a keep 10 of the 38 movies. We can't do that, because then I'll never have any sleep.
Oh, we'll just have to do a keep 5 then.
Yeah, we could do keep 10 for the Showa, and then maybe keep 5 for the other eras, and things like that, just to kind of siphon out what we would keep and not keep from each generation of films.
All right, I'm down for that. For Godzilla vs. Megalon, that is all I have, unless you have something.
Yeah, so I mean, unless the very last word, we want to throw out what our current top 10 looks like after getting rid of the 3 we don't love. What your top 10 would look like.
Absolutely, I can do that. Starting from the bottom would be at 10, Godzilla Raids Again. 9, Destroy All Monsters. 8, Son of Godzilla. 7, Godzilla vs. Hedorah. 6, Godzilla vs. Megalon. 5, Godzilla vs. Gigan. 4, the original 54. 3, King Kong vs. Godzilla. 2, Invasion of Astro Monster. And still at 1 is Mothra vs. Godzilla.
Alrighty, my number 10 is Godzilla vs. Hedorah. Number 9 would be Gigan. I got number 8, Raids Again. Number 7, Astro Monster. Number 6, Son of Godzilla. Number 5, Ghidorah. 4, Destroy All Monsters. 3, King Kong vs. Godzilla. 2, Mothra vs. Godzilla. And then I went back with the original for number 1 spot.
Okay, nothing wrong with flip-flopping. So I see we have King Kong vs. Godzilla in the same spot at number 3. So
yeah, we got some touchstones here that then you can enjoy your 70s trash.
Well, you talked me into keeping Godzilla Raids Again, as it makes a nice trilogy. And then I seen it on the... Go ahead.
Yeah, the power of continuity.
Yep, and then I was I was home alone bored, and I turned on the Pluto Godzilla channel, and Godzilla Raids Again was on it, and it was at the part where they were burying him with the jets and the ice, and I was just like, this film is pretty good. So, I mean, it's staying for now. We'll see what happens.
It's so sort of panned that it's almost underrated,
Yeah, for sure. I cannot disagree that is an underrated Godzilla film.
What was I going to mention? There was a little something I thought I was going to mention. Oh yeah, I'm making a joke about 70s trash when I'm about to completely simp for a pair of for the final two 70s Godzilla movies.
There is nothing wrong with that, because I'll tell you what, I like this double feature. Even if it was one long movie, with like a little explanation in the middle of how they got Mecha Godzilla back rolling and a little more to it, I think it'd be a great 3-hour film. But as a double feature, you can't go wrong.
Yeah, I'm getting ready to sing some praises of these movies. Not to show my hand too much. But yeah, as far as Godzilla vs. Megalon goes, fun movie. It's definitely a fun movie to watch, especially if you've got some buddies and you're trying to have kind of like a goofy bad movie night or something like that, or just have some fun with it, watching it with a youngster or anything like that. It's not top tier Godzilla in most regards, but it's got high entertainment value.
Absolutely. And if you're looking to introduce your kids to Godzilla, this is one of the first ones I would probably go for. I mean, you can even skip to 55 minutes in where Godzilla shows up and he's there, and show them the last half hour and see what they think.
Exactly. That's how my my older brother has shown my nephew a few of these older movies. He just kind of skips to the big monster fights at the end, and it's always the 70s movies because they compensated for lacking in other areas by just having these long, drawn-out monster fights at the end.
Well, I did actually forget to mention something, and that was the scenes of Godzilla swimming across once he jumps in the water, and we see the visual of his head swimming in the water. I know you had brought that up a couple movies ago, and how it was going to start to become like a staple.
Yeah.
So I wanted to give that a little shout out as well.
Yeah, we got to see that bit, and it's funny because the shot, they always use the same shot of Godzilla jumping into the water from Ever a Horror of the Deep. So it's like this very sort of like iconic moment, because every time Godzilla jumps off an island into the water, they use that same shot. So I always just imagine the same movement that Godzilla does when he jumps into the water.
Yep, just going in for a cannonball.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I just wanted to give that a little shout out quick. But that is all I have for Godzilla vs. Megalon.
Likewise.
All right, so next week we will be looking at 1974's Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla, which was released theatrically in Japan on March 21st, 1974. So, Chris, thanks for joining me on Godzilla vs. Megalon. I know this not a great film, but as we say, fun as always.
Yeah, absolutely. And your mileage varies. For some people, this is exactly the kind of Godzilla movie they love most. For some people, this is just kind of, this isn't their jam. This isn't what they come to the franchise for. But it's there for whoever wants to enjoy it for whatever level they want to enjoy it at.
Absolutely. And once again, next week is Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla. But thanks again for joining me. Thanks for listening. And until next time. Bye.